All right, welcome everybody to GoPro mentoring session. It is Monday, May 10th, and I am Stacey Dickerson. I am a Platinum 1, Elite 1 here with Modere, and tonight I'm going to be talking about stories. I'm going to talk about the importance of stories, the mechanics of stories, and how to utilize them and create them. But first, I need to take a deep breath because my heart's racing a little bit, as it does when you start doing these things. And I'd like everybody to just relax for a second. It's Monday, we're rushing. Just relax, take this all in, and hopefully I will be sharing some value, some new information. And for some people, a lot of people, it's probably old information. But here we go. Okay, before I get going, I want to tell you a little bit of a story about me. I came from a split family. And when my mother remarried, I ended up with a stepbrother and a stepsister. Now, they were a lot older than I was, so I never lived with them. I never grew up with them. But man, oh man, did I hear the stories about what they did when they were teenagers. Can I just ask everybody to mute themselves, please?
I have, not a good part, though.
I'm just going to take a second here and mute everybody again. All right. So like I was saying, I didn't have the opportunity to grow up with them, but I did hear about all their shenanigans. And my goodness, I was so looking forward to becoming a teenager because I had heard what they had done and they paved a smooth path for me. However, I want to talk a little bit about my stepbrother. Now, he was not a big guy, but he had big presence, and he was a musician. Really a stereotypical, you're starving musician is what he was. Now, he moved into the city. He got married, had 2 kids, was divorced, was still doing the gig thing, right? Late nights, sleeping all day. He did that education to get that high paying job. And unfortunately for him, every month there was more month than money. And I heard this story about him and it kind of made me sad. He had his favorite guitar, and more months than not during the year, he would take that guitar to the pawn shop and he would trade it in for some money that would get him to the end of the month. Okay. And then when he got paid, he'd go back to the pawn shop and he'd get his guitar back. Now, he did this over and over. And really, I think maybe the pawn shop owner did him a favor and kept it aside because I'm pretty sure my brother was praying every month that nobody bought the guitar on him. So this one time, same thing happened again. He had more month than money. He took the guitar to the pawn shop. That night, the pawn shop burnt down and he lost that guitar. And what he lost was his overdraft. What would be for us an overdraft, that was his overdraft. And so that really kind of summed up how his financial life went. Now, 4 years ago, my brother became very ill. He had cancer. And the night that we were at SRC watching Asthma introduce access to us. Remember that feeling? We were sitting there and we were all getting excited to hear what product she could have developed that was going to take us to the next level. And, you know, I can remember I was so excited, couldn't even fathom what was about to be announced. And my phone rang and it was my mom and she was crying and my stepbrother had passed. So there I am, 2 huge realms of emotion happening. I'm excited about what's about to happen to the future of us, partners, company, and then hearing that my stepbrother had passed. Now, it was a blessing. He had suffered, wasn't good quality of life the last 4 years. But why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because now we're going to spend the next 15 minutes together. But you're connected to me because I've given you a story. I've given you a bit of me, a piece of my history, a piece of what I have felt, what I have gone through. But I'm going to continue on with my stepbrother for just 1 more minute. A week later, our hometown Facebook page, somebody put his obituary in it. So of course, I wanted to read the comments. So touching, very touching. Now remember, he had moved away into the city probably 45, 50 years ago. He's a lot older than I am. He was a musician, but he wasn't famous. He didn't have a lot of money. He didn't have anything fancy. But the comments that were left in that Facebook group were, he always made me laugh. He always had the best stories. He was such a great person. I will never forget him. Thank you for the great memories you left us with. And the one that really got me, he was larger than life. You see, one of my brother's greatest talents and gifts, one would say, would be his communication skills. He knew how to connect with everyone. He never prejudged anyone. And he always made everybody feel equal. He always left you smiling and feeling happy after your conversation with him, whether you just met him 5 minutes ago or whether you had known him for life. It wasn't until I was reading those comments that I fully understood the power of communication and the power of communication that we have within this business. I mean, even after 50 years, people were still writing memories they had of him and the impact he had made on their lives. This was done all through communication. He was larger than life, someone said. Can you imagine having someone write that about you? It absolutely blew my mind. Now, as I go into this training, I want to explain that I like to do it in a why, when, how, where type format. That way, it's easy to take the notes. It's easy to go back to pull information. And it's easy to, when there's another training on this topic, that you can just add to it. Okay, so each one will have kind of a subtitle or a title. So here we go. Why? Why is it that stories are so key to our business? Stories are an incredible way to communicate. Everyone loves a storyteller. Think back to when you were little and you went to the family reunions. Who was your favorite person? It was that person that you crawled up on their lap and they gave you a cookie and they looked at you and they shared those stories with you and they made you feel connected. That's who we remember. And that's why stories are so important, because they connect us. Did you know the fastest way to excel in your business is to communicate effectively? Makes sense, right? Well, why wouldn't you use stories that you are surrounded by to do just that? Whether you're speaking to 100 people at a time or just one-on-one, communication is so important, and learning to do it effectively is a must. It is the most predictable and fastest way to grow your business. And everyone knows that we all love predictability. Now, some may ask, if you're new, where do we find these stories if we don't have our own? Well, they're right in front of us. And there's a plethora of stories in amongst all of the groups that you belong to. Every single person you come in contact with is a new story to add to your collection. Every testimonial you read about becomes an addition to your story bank. Think about when you were just about to hit submit. What conversations were being had? I bet there was a story being told, and that's what resonated with you, and that's why you hit the submit button. There's an abundance of stories at our fingertips. It's up to you to find them, to learn them, and to communicate them in a way that the person you're talking to can relate to. Take One Voice, for instance. There's stories in there about how people were exposed to Modere, how leaders have gone through trials and tribulations, how people have succeeded, what different backgrounds and careers people have. If we're talking products and testimonials, you'll find that in your product groups, the Real Result Room or the VIP room. Look through the guides. Every product has its own guide with tons of testimonials. And don't ever use the excuse, well, I don't know them, so I can't share that story. Yes, you can. That's what we do. We use those stories until we create our own. You borrow stories until you have created your own portfolio. Now, some people may even try and get out of using other people's stories by saying, what happens if I tell somebody's story and I'm asked a question and I don't know the answer? Well, this is social retail. You don't need to answer right away. You have time, and you will find the person that knows the person that knows the person that will get you the answer. Share people's wins. That's how you're going to succeed in this business. Who are we telling the stories to? Anyone that will listen. We tell it to potential customers, potential business partners, teammates. Did you know that 76% of North America are living paycheck to paycheck right now? They're living more month than money. I just told you a story about that. What does that tell us? It tells us that 76% of North America either enjoys that lifestyle, or they're stuck in that lifestyle, or they haven't yet heard our stories. They haven't heard your story. Professionals in this business are those creating the most wins by mastering the ability to communicate through actions of collecting and telling these stories. When do you share stories? Every time you're in front of teammates, potential clients, potential partners, when you're in groups, on Zooms, on one-on-ones, when you're in the grocery line. When you are with these individuals or groups, you need to be prepared with your stories. You need to have your presentation or your story ready, or you are leaving money on the table. You could be leaving impact on the table. And worse, you could be leaving people behind. You need to have your signature talk and your relatable stories ready to go at all times. Sometimes it's going to be messy at start, but the more you start to implement stories into your conversations, the more you'll become relatable and the faster you will grow. What are the key components to remember when comprising your stories? Clarity. You need to know who you are talking to, who you are serving. And how do you do that? By communicating effectively and listening. What is the problem you are trying to solve for them? You need to know that. You know, the hardest part of telling a story is to state the problem in the language of a consumer rather than in the language of the expert. I'm going to say that again. The hardest part of telling a story is to state the problem in the language of a consumer rather than in the language of an expert. You have to think back and remember the feelings and the language and the actual problem before you became the expert. You need to be aware of the consumer's needs and feelings. Someone will always, always remember how you made them feel, and that can go either way, good or bad. We want people to leave here or leave your conversation feeling like you took the time to make the connection. And we do that by sharing valuable stories with them. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. How do we tell an effective story? Now, these are the notes that you're going to want to take. Putting together great communication for your business starts with having a great story. Writing or preparing in our minds our stories is so much easier than you might think. Let's take, for instance, Pat Quinn's process, the 3-act process. 2.5 minutes, that's it. In and out with your story. To me, this is brilliant. It's the easiest way to create a successful story. So I'm going to give you 3 examples. I'm going to walk you through the process. Then I'm going to give you 3 examples. And 2 are going to be on product and 1's going to be on business. Okay. So the process of Pat Quinn's storytelling goes like this. It's Act 1. That's 60 seconds long, no more. And that you're talking about the before. Act 2 is 30 seconds long, no more. And that is called the pivot. And then you have Act 3. Again, another 60 seconds, in and out, done. And that is what life is like now. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how to use that format to create effective stories when talking to potential customers and potential business partners. Act 1 for me. My husband was a carpenter. He worked long hours. He did very strenuous work. It was hard on his body. He would come home at night. He was stiff. He was tired. His knees hurt. He would go to bed and the discomfort was awful. He couldn't sleep at night. Act 2, the pivot. As soon as I heard about this liquid gold, I knew we had to. All he had to do was take 1 tablespoon in the morning, 1 tablespoon at night. Act 3. Now he feels great. He's looking great. He has energy and he sleeps all night. The discomfort in his knees is gone. Easy, right? The before, the pivot, and the now. Another example. Now keep in mind with this one, I have listened. I've used effective communication and I've listened to my prospect. I know who I'm serving and I'm prepared. Your kids are in elite sports. Oh, I can remember how expensive that was. I was always scraping to make the payments. The gas money we spent was outrageous and the tournament costs a fortune. I was so glad when I was open-minded when my friend said she had an opportunity for me to look at. It only took 30 minutes for her to explain it to me. And I'll tell you, it was the best $39 I ever invested in myself. Now I'm able to share with other mothers that while they're watching their kids at their practice, they can be working, they can be making money to help alleviate the cost of those rep fees. And now when they go to hotels, these moms are enjoying themselves and they're not making peanut butter sandwiches out of the cooler. They're able to pay for the hotels, not worry, and go out to dinner with the team. One other example, and you take this of using a friend of a friend. You're telling somebody else's story. My friend's friend had tried every diet out there. She couldn't budge her weight. She had no energy, no self-confidence. It was low. It was so sad to see her. We introduced her to this system and she began to see changes. It was easy. She took 3 products before she even left to go to work and it all tasted great. She was so happy. Now she's lost the inches. She feels great. She has lots of energy. Her self-confidence is back and she's absolutely glowing. When you know who you are serving and you have an arsenal of stories ready, you will win. Now, we've gone over using stories to communicate effectively with potential customers and business partners. Now let's wrap up with creating your story. When creating your story, you need to remember that your greatest adversity is your greatest asset. What you may not want to share, what you are embarrassed about or don't think is important, will be your most powerful story of all and will help more people be drawn to you than you'll ever know. Again, how do we do this? Well, we're going to travel into the way Eric Worre teaches us. First, we tell our background. Second, we tell our pain points. Third, we give a solution. And fourth, we talk about our future. Again, this needs to take a minimal of 2, maybe 3 minutes, not much more, because you will lose your audience. Okay, adults are worse than kids. We can't stay focused. And this is where you have to step outside of your comfort zone. This is the story that may be awkward for some to tell at first, and it will definitely be messy. But the more you tell it, the easier it will become. Did you know that we're actually highly paid storytellers? Think about it. That's what we do. So the more that you learn, the more you collect, and the more you tell, probably will indicate your pay. Again, we go to the background, the pain points, because remember, facts tell, stories sell, the solution, and the future. So just a quick, this is the top end of my story, the first minute. I just want to show you how easy it is to put in the background, the pain point, the solution, the future. Hi, my name is Stacey. I was an educational assistant for 23 years, if you can believe that. Although I worked with some amazing kids and some amazing adults, every day I found myself lacking excitement. I had no get up and go. I had a dull headache Monday to Friday that just would not leave. And I knew there had to be more out there for me. My friend called me one day and she said she had an opportunity to show me. Boy, am I ever glad I was open-minded and took the time to listen to her. Not only had I been introduced to great products, I've met incredible people, and I've also found a way to actually make more money than I was at the school. I feel energized, alive, and I've been able to work from home now. I'm so excited for the future because I know there's no glass ceiling here and sky's the limit. That was less than a minute. When crafting your story, it becomes your signature story. It attaches to you like your brand. Tell it and tell it over and over again. It's supposed to be you. You hear all the influencers tell their stories over and over. You hear Tony Robbins speak of that Christmas dinner and that Thanksgiving dinner where there wasn't any food and there was a knock on the door and some man brought them dinner and his dad was mad. And Tony right then made that decision that if he could help kids not be hungry, that's what he was going to do with his life. Or you hear the story that Eric Worre tells about that Thursday night that he had to take the money he didn't have and go and rent that boardroom at the hotel because no one else in his organization would. And he had to spend that money, rent that room, take that chance, give the presentation that he had no idea how to give because he knew if he didn't, he wasn't going to excel or go further in this business. And we all know the Tony and Sarah story. We know that they've been in this industry for 20 years, that Sarah was a nanny, that Tony worked with his mom on a taco truck, that there were struggles. And they joined Modere 8 years ago, and they have worked their tushies off and have just been recognized as $1 million earners in this industry. Why do I know all that? Because those are their backgrounds. Those are their stories. They don't change a whole lot because it's part of them. It's an extension of their brand. Again, your background, your pain point, your solution, and then your future. You put them all together and you create your signature story. Act 1, before. Act 2, pivot. Act 3, now. You put those together and you're ready for when you're talking to potential customers and business partners. People like people that tell stories, and people listen to people that tell stories. So learn and become a master storyteller. Is this business easy? Hell no. But it's simple. It's simple as a 3-act play. Thank you for having me on tonight. I hope that you found some value in what I had to share. Love and appreciate you all. And I'm wishing everybody a fantastic evening. See you later.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Stacey, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
So good,
Once
thank
again,
you.
Fabulous.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
you.